your host, Dannie C. Kelly. Hey, fam. Did you hear that? We've invited our brothers in the room. That's right. It's not just ladies, but we're talking about the thing that makes our heart beat, the thing that drives us a little loco. And what is it? It's L-O-V-E, love. I have the privilege to invite my brother, who is now a two-time author in the room. He just released his book, Love Matters. Love matters? And we're going to talk about, does it really matter? We're going to talk about why it matters, and we're going to hear from some of the people that I think have some wisdom, some insight, and a little bit of jokes, right? So I want you to stay tuned with me for this next episode of Love Matters, Love Matters. Thank you. We'll be right back.
The question is not whether you are capable. The question is whether or not you are willing. Visit DreamWhere.org, where it is your dream and our purpose.
Welcome back to the Time for Her Talk Show. I'm your host, Dannie C. Kelly. Hey, fam. Listen, we got some fam in the room. In fact, we have some fam on stage. Hey, Britney. Hey, Tobias.
What's good?
Yeah,
What's good?
I'm excited to have y'all. Y'all are some good people. I'm glad to have y'all spouses in the audience. And let me tell you, it's a pleasure. Britney, you are with Best Friend of Faith. Tell me a little bit about Best Friend of Faith. How did that even begin?
It actually began in May 2020 when I was in my prayer closet on a call in my prayer closet with a friend, and I had been struggling with friendships. I had been struggling with life, if I'm very honest. And but I felt like when I needed a friend, they weren't there. Like the friends that I needed were not there. And so I was in my prayer closet and I was on a call, and she said God had led her to me, and we were talking, and then the Holy Spirit just took over. And as he took over, I'm writing, and it was like sister and friend, sister, bestie, friend, a bestie in faith, all these different things that he was giving me. And I'm like, Lord, what does this mean? And then 3 years later, I got married, and then I started having problems with my friends. And I'm like, Lord, how can you give me best friend in faith and I'm struggling with my own best friend?
Wow.
Like, what they do that at?
Yeah.
And he said, because I have equipped you. You know what it looks like. And it was really because I had been connecting myself with the spirit of familiarity. Growing up, I was always abandoned and rejected. And I noticed those were the friends that I was gravitating to. The people that struggled with abandonment.
Wait a minute, sis, because you didn't say it a lie. Okay. So you just said that you were choosing friends based off of a pain that you identified with, right? And I think that some of us can relate to that, right? In the audience, online, that we've chosen people because we were in places of pain. We've chosen people because we were hurting. Tobias, what I love is that you've been very intentional to just be yourself online. You have an online presence, but to connect with men. Tell me, what encouraged you to connect with men despite maybe you've been hurt before as well?
Absolutely. So I grew up in a single-parent household raised by my mom. She raised 3 boys. To God be the glory for just using her and choosing her to raise us. But I grew up as the youngest of 3 boys. My brothers, the Lord is still saving them. So if you're watching, I want you to get saved.
Yeah.
But it was very difficult for me because I was the only one that was on fire for the Lord. And I felt so rejected. And she even talked about feeling abandoned. I felt so different. I understand now that God had chosen me from before he even placed me in my mother's womb. So I don't regret it. I don't feel guilty about it. But back then, I felt so alone, and I felt like I was misunderstood. And so when I grew older and I started forming friendships, I too began to form friendships based off rejection and the feeling and the need to want to connect with people that accepted me or accepted the idea of me, or anybody that would have a conversation with me, anybody that showed interest in me, I gravitated to. And it wasn't until I moved to Houston 3 years ago that the Lord really began to deal with me on the relationships, the friendships that I had, the mindset that I had about everything. The Lord he just started pouring, and he started revealing, and he started dealing with me on a lot of things. And one of those things was friendships. And he didn't start with, picking out what was wrong with everybody else, but he really started pointing at me.
Okay.
And saying, how have you fallen short?
Yes.
How have you not showed up? What part did you play in building these friendships that were not founded on faith and covenant? And
I really love that, because oftentimes when we talk about losing friends or being hurt in relationships and friendships, we blame the other person. Yeah. Like, they hurt me, they abandoned me, they left me, they did this to me. Yeah. And what you're simply saying is, I recognize that there was something I needed. Yes. There was an issue with me. And if we be honest, I think that sometimes we haven't been good friends. Like when we like when we consider how we've chosen, we can also recognize we haven't shown up our best. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about how you knew you were choosing wrong, because you guys both used words like, I chose rejection. I chose out of that place. What does it look like to choose out of a place of rejection? What type of characteristics or what type of behaviors were you displaying in order to choose from that place that maybe if you were healed, you wouldn't have done?
So I literally sent an email out today that said the 27-year-old Britney required a different level of friends. She wanted the person that accepted or didn't call out her shortcomings, that allowed her to live in her filth, allowed her to, pass out drunk if that took place, to be the go-to girl in Houston. I've never been a promoter a day in my life, but I was the go-to girl in Houston. The 27-year-old, that's what I needed. I needed someone that did not hold me accountable. This 37-year-old Britney, baby, accountability is the number one thing. Prayer is the number one thing. I got to have some friends that pray. Okay, I don't know about y'all, but baby, it gets real out here in this life, and we got to have the foundation of God in the center of our friendship. I often tell people, friendships is a relationship. Yes. So how you work with your spouse, it takes the same work with your friendship, but the 37-year-old Britney requires differently.
But you know what? That says something, because even at 27, you grown.
Absolutely.
And you can have that attitude like, I'm grown, don't talk to me. I can do what I want to do. I'm grown. Like, you do you, I do me. And so for you to recognize that friendship isn't just about pacifying behavior or agreeing with behavior, even, right? It's about calling you higher. I love that. What about you, Tobias? When you say that it came from a place of rejection, is it different for men, like as it relates to connecting? Because we as girls, we can be catty, we can be loving, we can connect, but men, y'all kind of sometimes are a little bit more reserved in that aspect.
So one of the things for me was that in my younger years, I chose company over covenant. Like, I wanted to
we're going to tweet that. Company over covenant. Help us, God.
I wanted to be in the presence and in relationship and in friendship with anybody who would listen, anybody who would pay attention. And it's funny because I sing and I speak and I have a voice of influence. And it's funny that after dealing with rejection and abandonment, that was the thing that I felt like for so many years. Although I have this voice and I have this gift to be able to reach people, to be able to inspire people, I felt like I wasn't being heard. So when I began to seek out friendships, I began to solicit anybody who would show up in any form, and not
just
even
being present.
Just being present, even if it wasn't, even if they weren't showing up in the way that I needed them to, as long as they showed up, I was satisfied. And so I had to begin to ask God, you got to help me. And one of the things that was an eye opener for me is when my wife and I got married, we had our wedding ceremony. My wife had this long roster of friends, right? And I think she had like 11 or 12 bridesmaids. And She told me from the very beginning, and this is a lesson for the fellas. Listen to your wife. She told me.
Y'all hear that? Say that again,
Listen
man of
to
God.
your wife. Listen to your wife.
Listen to
She
the
can save you
girl.
some heartache.
Listen.
But she told me, she's like, you know, when she selected her number of bridesmaids, she was like, don't just choose guys to meet up to my number of. But me looking at it from an aesthetic, kind
Yeah.
of thing. I'm like, how's it gonna look?
I
if
want
you
11 'cause
you
you got
12 on
11.
your side and I got 5 on my
Yeah.
side. It don't look good. Come on now, we need some
Yeah.
representation
Yeah.
from the men. And so I selected guys that man, I went to high school with him, or we grew up and we went to the same church. We ain't talked in 10 years, but that's my boy. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And what happened was, it was like 12 guys that I invited and that accepted to be a part of my wedding. On the day of my wedding, there was 2 guys that showed up.
Wait a minute.
2 guys. And I was sharing with my wife that it would have been one thing if it was 1 or 2 guys
Yeah.
that didn't show up, because I could have kind of dealt with that. Still may have been disappointed, but it would have been something totally different if it was 1 or 2 guys, maybe even 3 guys. But when 10 out of 12 don't show up, the Lord really revealed to me, okay, there's something wrong with you that I got
Wow.
to deal with.
Well, I'm sorry that it took a wedding day.
Okay. But listen, good thing we got married before we went down to the water wall, so it won't like it was.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So
And you gained a lifelong best friend.
That's
so
right. That's right.
you're still one.
That's right.
I think that's so interesting that both of you went internal, right, and began to look at yourself. That really speaks to the Holy Spirit. So how would you say then, being at this new place, having the revelation, even having the experiences that you have, how do we choose friends, y'all? Like, if we want to go out there and we want to choose friends, how would you say is the best way to choose friends, even in being in space when you're growing? Like, do we just not have friends because we're not completely healed, or do we just not have friends because we haven't, made this big growth spurt? How would you say, for the person who's like, I really want to be intentional, how do we make friends?
For me, I'm reminded of Gideon in the book of Judges, and how he formed his army. He wanted all these people around him. And I could relate to that, right? Because I wanted to have all these people around me. And God was like, you got too many people. And so it's like, and when I look at that, it's like, one, you need to go to God.
Yeah.
Right? And I know some people like, it don't require all that, it ain't that serious, but it actually is that serious. Mm-hmm. Your circle, your tribe, your community, who you surround yourself with, they literally, my mama used to always say, baby, you ain't really got all them friends that you think you got.
Oh, yes. Mamas know it all.
Listen, mamas
know your real friends.
Mamas know your real friend. And I'm like, mama, that is my friend. But it's like, she was like, baby, life will show you. Yeah. And it's like, it's when I really get in my closet, I'm like, Lord, because when you go through heartbreaks, and just being very honest, y'all, I mean, when you go through friendship, breakups with friends, you mourn.
Mm. Yeah.
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 Like, let's be real.
Yeah.
It's a breakup.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it hurts, especially if you've been friends with them for a long time, and it honestly doesn't make sense why it even broke up to begin with, or if a life change happened. Mine was unfortunate when I got married, but it hurts, and you mourn, and then you start wanting to cut out. You're like, well, was any of my friendships real?
Yeah, so you put up walls
in
order to protect yourself.
That's just naturally, and you gotta remember, I've already dealt with rejection and abandonment my whole life. Yeah. So for me, it ain't nothing but putting a wall. I created the wall. Okay, it was hard for me to take it down. And so now that, again, the 37-year-old Britney is so intentional about who she allows around her. Like you mentioned, baby, that was good. The covenant and the whatever. Where we got to tweet that. But it's so important, because the calling on my life, the mandate on my life, I posted about earlier. Can your character keep up with your purpose? And sometimes when you are with your character, is your people around you, right? People have they shape you. They help shape and influence who you are. And does that align with the mandate on my life? The calling that God has for me? Does it align? The 37-year-old that's married to an executive pastor can't go to 50-15 with you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
The calling on my life requires more of me.
It does.
It requires me to get in his word. And when you do that, he'll expose people and he'll expose you. Again, we've been very transparent. Brittany had to do a lot of, she's still working,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah.
She dies daily, baby.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
That old person
yeah.
be like, want to pop
Yeah.
up. But thank the Lord. But anyway, you get in his word, you ask God, like, okay, Lord, I'm already dealing with this rejection. Can I trust? Can I trust again? Can my heart be open?
Okay, so you just said, can I trust again? What is it that would make you trust again after experiencing such heartache? Have you thought about that? Like, what would make you say, because you say, like, I'm the queen of, like, putting up walls, but you eventually took them down again. What would you say in a situation when you've been hurt? And again, Tobias, 10 men didn't show up to your wedding. What would make you say, man, nah, I just don't have no friends. It's just me, myself, and I. It's just, that's all I got into the end.
Well, you know, I go back to the word that I've been sharing since I started talking, covenant. I refuse to believe that God would make me a promise that he cannot and he will not keep. Just refuse to believe it. I refuse to believe that a God that would create the entire universe, that would form me and know me before I was in my mother's womb. I refuse to believe that he would not allow me and equip me with the people to help me carry out my destiny.
Yes.
So even when I've been so broken, as my pastor would say, discipled by disappointment, even when I've been so discipled by disappointment, there's something down on the inside of me that's reminded of God's word when he says that he would give me a friend that sticks closer than a brother.
Yes.
So I got to hang on to that promise even when everything around me is saying something different, when the enemy, even when my flesh and my own thoughts are saying, you're going to be alone. But see, the thing is, the enemy would have us to be alone by ourselves, wanting us to be isolated. But the thing about it is that sometimes God will take us through a certain season where he will isolate us.
Yes.
And it's not the same thing, you see what I'm saying? Because when God sits you down and when God isolates you, it's for the preparation of something greater that's coming. So when I began to realize that what was happening when the guys didn't show up at my wedding, when I began to realize that, yes, it doesn't feel good, when I began to realize that this is not the enemy, this is God. This is God. I won't give the enemy credit for circumstances that he didn't create.
Wow.
Can't do it.
Y'all hear that? I will not give the enemy credit. Oh, good. That's good. That's good. You know, when I hear them talking, y'all, it sounds like you guys truly submit to God in such a way. And there's a leading from your heart. There's a growth and, like you said, a promise, or there's that prayer that you pray. So I'm just going to ask it flat. When it comes to friendships, does love matter?
Love absolutely matters. Love absolutely matters. Love and honor. God has been teaching me about honor, and he's been revealing to me that I've not always honored the people that he's placed in my life. And as I'm on this journey to being a better man, being a better son, because as I submit myself to Christ, he causes me to flourish and prosper in all areas of my life.
Yeah.
And so love matters because when you love someone, you honor them. And when you honor them, you cherish them and you treat them right and you consider them and you're compassionate towards them. And so as we talk about friendships, like if you don't love them, if you don't honor them, you're not going to be able to withstand the test of times.
Right.
You're not going to be able to endure seasons of transitions when you're going through one place, when you're trying to get from where God has you to where he's taking you. If you're not honoring the people and the friends that he's given you, you'll find yourself isolated. And what was God's moment for you to be cultivated and developed will be the enemy's opportunity to back you up in a corner. And to cause you to be in the wilderness longer than you're supposed to be in the wilderness. Okay, 40 years will become 400 years overnight.
Yes. Yes. That's so good. Okay, I think Tobias spoke for the men that love matters in the friendships. What about you, Brittany? Would you say that love matters in friendships? Is it relevant?
Absolutely. When you think about love, love is patient. Love is kind. Love is long suffering. Love is enduring, through the transitions. Love is blind, baby.
Ooh, okay.
Because when you think about it, when you're going into friendships, you're going in with unknown. You don't know how it's going to end up.
Yeah.
You're just going in there thinking that, okay, we're going to try this again. And what I've been learning, what I've been living by is extending the same grace that I want.
Yeah.
So if I want you to be patient with me, I got to extend that.
Yeah.
If I want you to be understanding, I have to extend that. If I want you to be available, baby, because adulting as friends is
It's a whole nother challenge.
and then you're married and ministry, it gets the availability gets a little limited, okay?
Yeah.
But it becomes you start extending that availability, right?
Yeah.
Because I want to show you I love you, sis.
Yes.
I love you. I might not be able to talk to you every single day, or we might not text every day, but I want you to know you matter to me. So not only does love matters, it matters. Y'all like that?
Yeah.
Not only does love matters.
I see what you did there. Yeah.
Shout out to the author.
Yes.
But it matters because without love, who are we really?
Yeah.
And when we think about it, how can I say I'm, a Christian, I love God, and I want God to love me, but I can't love his people? They might they might get on your nerves.
Yes. Get your people.
Get your people, Father.
These your
But I still got to
children.
love them because I want them to love me.
Yes.
I tell people it's like, sometimes they're like, well, you don't really know yourself. You're right, I didn't. How can you know me and I didn't know myself?
Yes.
But when love comes with it, love gives a certain level of grace. It extends a certain level of, I'm gonna let you make it. I'm gonna give you a little leniency.
Yes.
Because I love you.
Yes.
And if I'm a Christian, then I gotta love you with the love of Christ. And so I have to extend it. I have to demonstrate that. Even in my
Wow.
brokenness.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Let me tell y'all, I have so enjoyed this conversation. Wasn't it good, y'all? Oh, I can stay here and talk the entire time. Well, while we have to close this segment, I want you to keep in mind that Brittany and Tobias are on a journey, but they have been wonderful, wonderful friends to me. I hope that this encourages anyone who is looking to build their friendships and to really grow, or maybe you gave up on friendships. I want you to start again because love matters. You heard it for yourself. Next up, I want to bring some special guests that what happens when we talk about love in a different sense, not just friends, but a little bit more romantic. Stay tuned, and I'll be back for A Time for Her. All right, thank you.